All right, welcome to this week's Tech Insights webinar series. This week we are talking about Dynamics and Power Platform, and as a result, we're talking about the Dataverse. No, this isn't the Spider-Verse. We are talking about the Dataverse. And with us this week to talk about that topic is Anthony Escobedo. Anthony is a technical architect with Concurrency. You've seen him on previous webinars we did, just recently on Viva and on Power Platform, and he's back this week to talk a little bit about Dataverse and Power Platform in respect to Dynamics. Welcome again, Anthony.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Nate.
And then Nicole Williams. Nicole is a managing architect at Concurrency. She is a rock star in the Dynamics platform, and she's a perfect complement to Anthony because she understands how Dynamics relates in the Dataverse, and she's going to break that down for us today.
Thanks, Nate. Happy to be here.
All right. Well, we're going to dive right into it. What we're going to cover today is first, what is the Dataverse? What does it relate? How does it relate to Dynamics and Power Platform? How do they leverage it? What are some examples of using it? And also, we're going to dig into some newer Power Platform features. We just had Ignite, Microsoft Ignite. We also just had a couple other engagements around Power Platform. New features are available. New capabilities are relating to Dataverse, Dynamics, and other parts of this ecosystem as they relate together. So we're going to dive into those topics as well. I think you cannot help but leave this conversation thinking, wow, there's a lot of stuff in Dynamics and Power Platform that I have not leveraged, and I should start leveraging it. So at the end of the conversation today, I ask you, before you close out, you're going to get a prompt to ask you to connect with us to talk about these topics. We would love to invest in you to talk about those topics, to dig into it more. You're going to get a lot of good information today. Let's drive even more information out of it by following up on this conversation today into a deep dive. Also, don't forget our upcoming webinar on ransomware versus zero trust security. This is going to be super interesting. We did a couple of zero trust security conversations over the last several months. In this one in particular, we're going to show ransomware competing against zero trust security and talk about how breaking down on a piece-by-piece basis how zero trust really mitigates ransomware flowing within your environment. So that's going to be a very impactful conversation. Do not miss it. All right, so let's start talking about Dataverse. One database to rule them all. Nicole, Anthony, what is this about?
Yep, so Dataverse really is the foundation of Power Platform, but also Dynamics, right? So if you have Dynamics today, you have Dataverse and you're actively using it. It's a place that allows you as an organization to store your data, secure it, and then build the apps on top of it. So whether that's model-driven apps or Canvas apps, or any of those apps within the Power Platform, you're building on top of that common data model within Dataverse. And the D365 product suite or the business application suite, sales, marketing, field service, customer service, those are Power Apps. They're model-driven apps. So whether you're using the pre-built ones like Sales Hub, or you've built your own model-driven app with the Dynamics customer engagement apps, those you're already using Power Platform and you're building on that Dataverse. And really, Dataverse it's more than a database, right? So in addition to storing that data, you get all of these additional items that come with that. Low code, no code logic, user queries and search platform, integration capabilities. All those things are built within Dataverse using the low code, no code features.
So you just blew my mind. So if I have Dynamics and Power Platform, or even one of those, I'm already using Dataverse. In fact, if I'm using Dynamics, I'm already using Power Platform and Power Apps.
Exactly. You already have your first Power App.
Ha! That's awesome.
Yep.
And this is sort of the evolution of what was the common data model, right?
Yep, exactly. So you have that common data model. You can build or extend on that if you need to go outside of what's there. So you get the standard tables, accounts, contacts, leads, opportunities, depending on what pieces you're using. But it allows the flexibility to move beyond that and extend that that common data model into that data that you need to store and then ultimately act upon.
So you hit on this earlier, it's more than a database. Help me really understand what that means. Like it still feels like a database. So like, why is this not just a database?
Yeah, it's not just a database because you're getting all of these functionalities and things that you can build upon and then use within apps. So for example, no code business logic, creating business rules. Business rules can be used in both model-driven apps or Canvas apps, right? Creating that if-then logic for your user processes. It has data management capabilities and integration, so import, export, and other options for integration. You have duplicate detection that you can set up. All the auditing and logging is built in here. So there's a lot more than just storing your data that goes into Dataverse. Another great feature here are the industry accelerators for Dataverse. So this extends the common data model for these industries and applies some basic data concepts for these different industries and just makes it easier for your organization to extend that application into these different types of pieces for the industries. So virtual entities, this is just one way that you can integrate data from third-party applications into Dataverse and into Dynamics. So this is great because you can provide a seamless experience for users to interact with data that may be in another application. You can limit licensing costs across applications by utilizing this, and then the users can work within a single source. Dashboards, reports, processes. You can even create relationships between the data using these virtual entities. So just another great feature and option for integration.
So what would be an example of external data that I could pull in and reference within the Dataverse? That would be something I could kind of put my finger on.
Yep, inventory is something that we see a lot. So a salesperson needs to check inventory, in an ERP system or another application as they're working deals. Virtual entities provides a way to do that.
You can see how that would simplify, just using the data in relationship to each other, without having to like know about this thing over here, being able to bring it all in place.
Yep, or it also helps with users having to context switch or jump across apps. It just creates that single place for a user to work.
Okay. All right. Well, now that we know what Dataverse is, how does Dynamics 365 and Power Apps leverage it?
Yep, so all the things that we talked about with Dataverse, right? You're building Power Apps on top of that data model to interact with it, right? A lot of common scenarios we see are simplifying scenarios. So taking the mobile experience to be a little bit more tailored with a Canvas app. So the user has very specific functions they're doing in a Canvas app that then's writing back to Dynamics or Dataverse. Simplifying user interfaces or input. With the Canvas apps, you get a much more tailored user experience. And then you also get new features like image capture. So there's, a great example there is having a mobile app for people on site surveys, being able to quickly take a photo and write site survey results, and then writing that information back into Dynamics and Dataverse to use for further processing. Connecting or extending processes across applications. So a lot of organizations still have paper or Excel processes that feed data into Dynamics, or someone fills out a form and then submits it to somebody who's going to then go duplicate entry into Dynamics. Great opportunity for Power Platform and Power Apps to bridge that gap between the Excel process and Dataverse. And then modernizing or creating new solutions. So inspection apps for manufacturing floors connected to F&O, customized forecasting experience for sellers to leverage data. So again, coming back to that virtual entity and making it a seamless experience for users without having to move across different applications.
Yeah, and I think just to zero in on a few of those key features as well. So when we build those model experience, the mobile experiences, or we build a very specific Power App Canvas app that you're going to build. It's tailored to a persona or a group of people that are coming in to do a very specific job and integrate or I guess add in or update specific data. So you're working with a very specific subset of data. Versus where the model-driven apps, you're working with a lot of data all at once, and it's maybe not all showing it on on the front end, but ultimately in these Canvas apps, you're coming in to do a very specific job, and that's where you can really tailor that experience and provide that, whether it's on a mobile experience or it's through Teams.
Feels like this is a mega point to underline. Like Dynamics has a huge purpose, and it builds on the Dataverse. In Power Apps, fulfills all these edge cases that can accelerate the relationship of data into Dynamics, the relationship of capturing information, barcoding, image recognition, service engagement, inspection, whatever the scenario is.
Barcodes, right.
Around. Yeah, it's like
so many things, barcodes, AI builder, all those things, right?
All surrounds Dynamics, and it's the same platform ultimately, but it enables those individuals who are makers to go and extend and accomplish a business purpose quickly.
It also helps with the relationship the users have with the data and making that experience much easier for them to do their jobs and do their day jobs without having to dig for information or flip through multiple screens.
Good point. So this is what you're mentioning here, streamlining processes, right? Talk a little bit about this.
Yep, so this is an example of, an intake process where someone is downloading a form from SharePoint or Excel or somewhere else. They're filling out that form, they're emailing it, there may be an approval process involved in it, and then ultimately it's a manual process for somebody to enter that data into Dynamics and then report on within Power BI. With Power Apps, you can see we cut down on those steps and we streamline it. You have that Power App, and we call out desktop and mobile here, but maybe that Power App is embedded into Teams where the people are working already on a day-to-day basis. Power Automate makes that workflow and that approval process much more seamless. And then ultimately, the data is integrated through Dataverse, and it's there without the need for somebody to replicate that data or manually enter it again into that system.
Yeah, this is a really good example because I think we've all lived the one above. We're downloading things, we're putting them in Excel, we're emailing it, we got these approvals, and this is really showing us how if we construct a simple Power App, we can then automate that process in a much more consistent way.
Yep.
All right, so better together. Tell me a little bit about this employee origination scenario.
Yep, so this is very similar to what we were talking about. We have a situation where somebody was filling out a form, emailing it to a distribution list. This is for users that were not licensed in Dynamics to submit new leads and new things to salespeople. The downfall of this process is that not only was it manual, but there was no good routing process to it. So people on the distribution list would forward around until it kind of found the right home. With the new process, the Origination app, the user submits it and it's feeding into Dynamics and picking up the Dynamics lead routing rules to assign it to the appropriate salesperson. This is another example. So this is actually combining 3 different features. So this is D365 Sales, Dynamics Customer Voice for Satisfaction Surveys, and Power Automate. So we were able to trigger surveys, automatic surveys to customers based on an event in Dynamics, closing a project. Power Automate is utilized to distribute that survey and then write those activities back into Dynamics so that you get that full 360 view of a client. and all of the things happening with it. And then in addition to that, Power Automate does a great job with escalating survey responses to managers based on certain results, right? And taking that to the next level. So this was interesting because it had all these different components sitting on top of Dataverse.
Wow, that's really powerful. There's a lot of different products and tools that are being integrated there. I guess one quick question that I would have there is, I guess what was the most exciting part about getting these tools to work together, and then I guess where did you see the largest benefit?
So I think the largest benefit was really having all of that data in a single place for business users to see. The most exciting part was that it was all done with low code, no code, and it was very simple to spin up and apply our own business logic to it and customize it without the need for significant amount of development. It also allows for iteration, right? Getting something out as an MVP happens very quickly, and then being able to just build on that as you move along the project.
Yeah, you see these tools that integrate. They're seemingly different pieces and maybe in somewhat different worlds at times. But then when you see them come together like this, and it's all in low code, no code, it's something that Microsoft fully supports, and they just integrate as if they were built that way. It's really incredible to see all these things come together.
One other thing I wanted to mention while we're talking about D365 and Power Apps is just the collaboration and the integration between Dynamics and Teams. So we have the ability to embed the model-driven apps in Teams, give users the ability to work from within one place. Very exciting news coming out of the Wave 1 releases and the new functionality coming with two-way integration. So we're going to have the ability to access contextual lists of teams in chats from within Dynamics directly. And then having the ability to edit records within Teams conversations. So just again, bridging that gap and making the experience for users and the things that they're using in a day very seamless.
I like the idea of having a team that has the account information attached to it, and then also being able to have, project channels and statements of work and other types of things all within that same interface.
Yep, one place to go, right? One place to navigate and kind of see that full picture.
And only the specific people having access to those things as well. I mean, that's a big deal because it's audience in the sense that if you need to see that, you're going to see it. If you don't need to see it, it's not there. It's not visible for you. So it's getting that in front of the right people and only the right people, and not causing confusion for others. And I think that's another just huge piece that Microsoft has done a really good job of. And that's the point of model-driven apps. You can only see the data that you have access to. Same thing with Canvas apps. You're only able to interact with that data that you can see and have access to.
So it really goes back to the core message that Microsoft is trying to surface everything within Teams. Whether it's Viva or it's Planner or it's Dynamics or it's Power Automate or Power Apps, it's all being surfaced within Teams.
Exactly, yeah, and taking advantage of, it's kind of like the new desktop, right? It's something that everybody just lives in. I couldn't imagine starting my day and not having Teams on at some point. Like you've got to turn that on. It's almost like the new email, but email kind of has a funny connotation to it. But Microsoft Teams is just it's the new universe that we're all moving towards.
Mm-hmm. I like here it's a new desktop. It's where I go for everything.
Yep.
Okay, so what is this?
This was a fun slide that I came across where you see these two they're coming together and it's really exciting. They're having a great time. And on the right here, it's model-driven apps, and on the left, you're going to see more of the Canvas apps, and it's even using some AI in there. But you see them come together, and it's more of a marriage now. It's more of something that it's no longer separate by any means. Even the admin centers are together now. So it's a funny image that kind of pulls this together.
Nice.
Great partnership.
Ooh, look at that
Yep.
transition. All right, so tell me about this. We need to go faster. We already have the data. What's this?
Yeah, so this is really exciting. I mean, the data that's already there. Now we just need to accelerate that and do more with it. So we're already with the data's in the spot that it needs to be in. The data model, we've already went through the exercises. It's being stored properly. It's being surfaced, the way that it needs to be. But now, we can take advantage of the data that's already there. It's already, especially the permission side of things too, in the different tables. You're really able to surface just enough data to the people that need to see it. And you can do that through Canvas apps. You can do that through model-driven apps, but enabling citizen developership around that now. So because of the way that the Power Platform is built, it really allows you to modularize. And I think this is the slide that you can see that, it's already available. Now, what can we do with it? How do we make the most of it?
Awesome. And this really complements that, right? The ability to bring capabilities to the table faster by enabling makers within the enterprise in Dynamics and Power Apps.
Completely. And so if you click through a couple slides here, I know I had some fun with the transitions here. Do a couple, or maybe just one more. Thank you very much. Oh, one more. Sorry about that. I didn't take off the fun transitions there, but you can see that there's 4 different modules that you're seeing here on the screen. There's personal and team productivity, there's simple business use cases, complex processes and data structure, and then at the end there's the organization-wide initiatives. These are 4 different modules, and when it comes down to it, 4 different groups of people that are looking to digitize a process, right? And if the data is already there, you can actually enable these different groups to access different data, and then also on top of that to digitize additional process tying into that same data, whether it's updating it or maybe you're integrating other systems, but being able to bring these together, and then you're ultimately enabling other groups of people to help digitize things that are in their world, because we're storing that information in Dataverse, we're accessing it, we're reading it, we're understanding it through Power BI. But now let's take it to the other side of things where people are working with that data. They're using that data for something. Now let's let them actually make that even useful in their day-to-day lives and automate more of that process. So that's where you see these 4 different modulars, kind of come into play here.
I think it represents, like, a lot of the times Dynamics, when you're going to make a change there, it's like this organizational wide thing. Like I'm changing a box and all of my 600 sellers need to be aware of that box that I've modified, and et cetera, right? Whereas in some of these use cases, I can surround Dynamics with these Power Apps that allow me to accelerate certain things without necessarily having to change the entire business process. And then as these other activities need to happen, that becomes more complicated business capabilities, but it's doing so incrementally.
You hit on a huge point there. That's actually something that we spent all last week. Nicole and I were tag team in a project all last week. We actually did just that. We built a model-driven app for a client, but we actually built a Canvas app that embedded on top of that model-driven app for that specific reason. So we didn't have to change the entire process. It was more of an overview and a look into the data, but being able to do that in the sense that it didn't change the overall process. And we did it on the fly with the client, along for the ride. So being able to really adjust and be agile in the sense that you're able to take advantage of these different components separately, but building them together.
And allowing different teams to build their own apps to build on the organizational process, right? So different teams can have different sub-processes. Giving that citizen developer group the ability to automate their own team processes is huge. The productivity involved in that, the productivity gains is awesome.
Agreed.
Awesome. So this is an example of something sort of like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is in Microsoft Teams, so you can see that it's accounts payable. They're able to see a scorecard up top with just high-level numbers of what's going on right now. So imagine being able to open that up, take action on the data that's there, or just being able to view that and then take action. And then on the next screen here, you're able to click a button that'll actually initiate a conversation within the chat. So being able to do that all through Power Platform, being the Canvas app that you saw there, that could also be embedded right inside of somewhere inside that model-driven app, so you don't ever have to leave the ecosystem of Power Platform if you're already in there. But then it also can be surfaced in Microsoft Teams. So it has that dual purpose where you're able to kind of be flexible with where the people are. And maybe it's two different personas or two different groups of people that are really taking advantage of that, but you're able to serve both of those needs at the same time with the same app without having to code two things.
Awesome.
Same thing here, you're able to just, oh, sorry. Yeah, you're just able to see, just the Power Automate at play here, where it's creating that conversation and initiating just, hey, we're seeing a difference here. Let's talk about it.
Another example of Canvas apps used for processes within Dynamics are model-driven apps. So this was for a company that had a process that involved assigning a large amount of tasks to people to process during an acquisition process. The Canvas app gave the users the ability to sort and filter and see the things that they needed to do that day, real time, and manage this in a way that was much easier for the user to see and enter data and complete things. The Canvas app, was used from a mobile perspective as well as a desktop perspective as that sub-process of the overall Dynamics platform. And then Power Automate gave the ability to automate the assignment process that was slightly unique to the client and to their needs.
It comes to mind that like the hard part in building a lot of applications is figuring out how to store the data. And in a lot of these cases, that problem's eliminated because we're leveraging the Dataverse that contains the data that we're trying to expose. And then further, the bringing that data to a useful purpose through user experience is accelerated because of the ease of developing within the Power Platform versus having to be a full code app developer and learn how to combine all this stuff together. You can accelerate even that engine. It just brings the ability for us to get data and functionality and process automation in the hands of an employee, that much faster.
Yep.
Yeah, great points. And I like the UX piece of that because it really does depend on who you're working with and how they're going to be able to consume that information. So one quick piece here that I wanted to touch on was the way, I guess it's the way that the consumers expect to see this information that we're seeing today. So you can use a single product by itself. You can, and it's going to work great. But when you start to see companies use the Power Platform together, that's when you start to really see an uptick in the productivity, not only in personal productivity but overall organizational productivity. So at the top there, you're seeing the expectation from a consumer that they're seeing the data in front of them. They have so many, just ideas that they want to do with this information. They have their sub-processes that they take advantage of. So that really goes back to a lot of those points that we made earlier today. Bringing those to light and then allowing those modular groups to take advantage of that data and then bring that further and make more of that digital process along the way.
I think about this particular graphic as this lower line is like IT trying to do this all themselves. And this is what happens when we're able to let the business do their own development, to expose data in a way that's useful, to make makers out of the rest of the organization. That's where you accelerate, you exponentially increase the number of people working to digitize the business. So that's where I think you really gain a lot of that by not just keeping it all within the context of IT, but using this as an opportunity to commoditize the data and productivity platforms.
Exactly. Yep. And being able to take advantage of what that is, and then the organization enabling that. That's really where that's at the heart of it. It needs to be part of the culture, and bringing that forward, and you see a huge uptick in productivity.
Absolutely. All right. So, man, that was a lot of really good information. We know what Dataverse is. We know how Dynamics is relating to it. We know how Power Platform builds on both. And we know there's something you can do with it. So we would love to take next steps. I warned you on this. Make sure when you close this webinar that you figure out how we can talk with you after it. I think there's a great opportunity for us to talk about how you leverage Power Platform and Dynamics and Dataverse in your business. Second, talking about how you exponentially increase the exposure of the maker community within your business, especially around establishing a center of excellence, around driving that within the organization, around helping regular business users become technology users. Also, don't forget to join us for our next webinar on ransomware and zero trust security. And check out all the recordings from these previous events. We've got some great content on Power Platform already out on the concurrency.com site. And thank you to Anthony and Nicole. You guys are awesome. Great content and great overview of this particularly interesting topic.
Awesome. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.